Although many consider Alex Kidd to be a classic 8-bit platformer, it's often overlooked compared to its old-school peers. Developers Jenkin Team and Merge Games look to rectify this by releasing Alex Kidd and Miracle World DX, a remake of the original 35-year-old title. What results is a game with more accessibility and boosted visuals, but stays faithful to the punishingly difficult and unique gameplay found upon its initial release. The plot sees the evil Jenkin overthrowing the king of Redaxian and taking over the land. In his conquest for power, he turned the villagers to stone and kidnapped the prince and his girlfriend. You play as the prince's brother and expert martial artist Alex Kidd on a quest to rescue them and bring peace to the land. Compared to the original version, additional stone characters and NPCs fill the land that you can talk to. It's unnecessary, but they help flesh out the world a bit more and help drive home the narrative. Actual gameplay sees you armed with your fists and agility to take out evil animals and monsters alike. Controls feel spot on with the original title, as you must get fairly close to enemies to hit them. Jumping and movement physics are also seemingly unaltered and maintain their slippery and floaty feel. They're by no means bad controls, but they do feel dated and particular to the Alex Kidd games. They don't leave much room for error and can take a while to get used to. Even with a solid understanding of the physics, obstacles and pitfalls will put your precision platforming to the test. Stages are sometimes laid out like mini puzzles, where you must contemplate your actions before you actually make a move. Luckily, most sections are generous to give you enough time to do this, but it doesn't make the execution much easier. Alex will die instantly if you hit an obstacle, which brings a strategic pace to the platforming. Fortunately, you respawn extremely close to the site of your death, but after 3 lives you are sent back to the beginning of the level. It's certainly more generous than the original release, which could mean a complete game over, but it's still challenging even with this change. For those looking for an even easier experience, you have the option of turning on infinite lives, which sidesteps the whole level reset. However, once you are in this mode, you cannot turn it off, making players more reluctant to use it. Aside from gameplay, the biggest notable changes are updated graphics and audio tracks. Sprites are presented with smooth, beautiful animation and completely re-envisioned character models for Alex and enemies alike. Backgrounds also see a major overhaul with vibrant environments interacting with gorgeous lighting effects. Amazingly, these changes not only affect the presentation, but the feel of the game as well. Because there are little nuances to animations, it is occasionally easier to anticipate enemies' movement and subtle actions. The soundtrack is given a rework with numerous fitting instruments and compositions. While the original 8-bit music is catchy, it arguably could become a bit repetitive. Alex Kidd and Miracle World DX's reworking of these tunes make repeat listenings a lot easier. Sound effects like Alex Punch also feel better suited and pack an audible impact with each strike. One of Alex Kidd and Miracle World DX's coolest features is the ability to switch between this reimagined version and the classic 8-bit style on the fly. The retro version features the same aspect ratio and additional characters as the remastered version, making the transition seamless. While I thoroughly appreciate DX's remade version, it was a joy to switch between the two to compare all the work done. Some additional levels and boss battles have also been added, but for the most part, it doesn't feel like a huge deviation from the original game. There are some tweaks made to the battles to make them a bit more involved and interesting. They can be tough, but rarely do bosses take many hits to defeat and are totally capable of beating with a bit of practice. The series' classic rock, paper, scissors battles before actual boss fights remain intact. Players can rely on chance for these sections or memorization if they fail their first attempts. While they give Alex Kidd and Miracle World DX a unique feel, at times these sections can feel a bit too frequent. Don't go in expecting a drastically longer experience with the additional content. It's hard to pick out the new sections from the original ones as they aren't as numerous as I initially anticipated. That's not to say the adventure is overly short. Like many games of the era, it lengthens its playtime through difficulty. With those infinite lives, it can cut that time considerably. Unlocking Classic Mode contains the original unaltered Alex Kidd and Miracle World with a bordered full-screen presentation that can be found after completing the main game. Additionally, Boss Rush provides a challenging gauntlet for those who wish to test their mettle. Both provide a bit of extra gameplay content after the main game. While Alex Kidd and Miracle World DX is enjoyable, it sometimes shows its age with unusual level design. For the most part, everything is a pretty straightforward side-scroller, until you get to a castle with awkwardly dated cryptic elements. It's great the developers are faithful to the source material, but it sometimes hurts the overall experience. On the flip side, it's remarkable how much of the gameplay holds up after all this time, and it says a lot about the game's original strength. Alex Kidd and Miracle World DX does a fantastic job of taking an already good game and adding a gorgeous, fresh, modern coat to it. The art design is beautifully done, and the option to switch between the redesign and 8-bit graphics adds to the nostalgic experience. While this remake is faithful, better or worse, there's no denying that the quirky and challenging world of Alex Kidd is a side-scrolling experience unlike any other. Noisy Pixel gives Alex Kidd and Miracle World DX an 8 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. Noisy Pixel is brought to you by a group of gamers who work hard to bring you news, reviews, previews, and more. Please subscribe to keep up with all our future content.
Noisy Pixel.